Ex-Blizzard executive dragged for suggesting gamers start tipping. Tipping for a game like Elden Ring in this economy? Former Blizzard president Mike Ybarra made waves recently when he suggested that gamers might want to start tipping their favorite games extra. I've often thought, I wish I could give these folks another $10 or $20 because it was worth more than my initial $70, and they didn't try to nickel and dime me every second, he tweeted last week. It was a well-intentioned, thought experiment that seemed to miss the forest for the trees. Ybarra has seemingly had a lot of free time recently after suddenly leaving Activision Blizzard amid vast layoffs following its acquisition by Microsoft, where he also worked as a corporate VP for many years. The longtime gaming business guy has been blogging massive single-player games on PC like Horizon Forbidden West, The Last of Us, and Final Fantasy VII Remake, and tweeting out thought leadery trial balloons like, I've always fundamentally believed if you make great games, the rest of the business, other problems minimize. His latest idea is adding a tip button to games so players can shell out a few bucks extra after watching the credits roll on games that left them in awe and didn't try to nickel and dime them with microtransactions. Games like Horizon Zero Dawn, I don't know if that's God of War or Gears of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, etc. Ybarra wrote, I know $70 is already a lot, but it's an option at the end of the game I wish I had at times. Some games are that special. Okay, so it's not done yet. Players immediately started roasting the former executive for what sounded to some like a request for a charity button for big gaming corporations. Some freaked out at the idea of being asked to spend even more money to play a game. Others balked at the idea of donating money that might never find its way into the pockets of the people who actually made the game. IGN video director Destin Laguerre probably put this line of criticism the most succinctly. I think the billion and trillion-dollar companies can handle compensating their employees fairly instead of relying on a tip from me, he wrote in response, because it's not like my money goes to the combat designer or level artist. It goes into the corporate piggy bank. It didn't help that the source of this thought experiment was the former head of Blizzard, whose employees were recently decimated by layoffs and reportedly denied their most recent bonuses. Despite only serving at the company for a few years, Ybarra reportedly helmed an especially demoralizing Q&A with staff in early 2023 in which he announced slashed bonuses and return to office requirements. Ybarra's recent tipping suggestion grasps essential tension in the current state of gaming, but fumbles the bag on how to actually address it. Players hate buying a game only to load it up and find there's another store inside it asking them for even more money to unlock additional features. Many big-budget single-player games cost too much to make and probably need to be priced higher. But until there are better rules in place for profit sharing and making sure voting with your wallet type logic actually goes to the creators it's meant to support, it's hard not to see paying extra as just another handout to the shareholders. Okay, do you want me to go first or do you want to go first?
You go first.
Okay. To any game publisher out there that can hear the sound of my voice, listen up. You want to know how you make a great game? Here's an idea. Look at your next project that developers are working. Ask yourself a few questions. Does it have a captivating story? Does it have characters that have that are relatable through their actions, where not relatable through skin color or creed or sexual orientation? No, I'm talking about relatable where you see the situation they're in and you're like, I can feel for that person. I understand why he or she is doing something that's not exactly on the up and up, but uh, characters that you can feel bad for. If they're because they're just normal people in a bad situation based on the game. Are the controls easy to pick up and play, or do you need to or do you need encyclopedia on controls just to get the basics of the gameplay? If the game has a captivating story, characters that you get to know and care about, and is easy enough to play, then you don't need this crap. You don't need a tipping jar. You don't need microtransactions. You don't need any of that shit. All you need to do is make a good game that people want to play. Why is this so hard for people to get after all this time? I am so sick of these publishers being this tone deaf. Oh my god, games are so much more to make. Well, when you're shoveling out shit that's mediocre at best, of course you're going to see diminishing returns.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, just like the new Suicide Squad game that's about to shut down at the beginning of next year. Yeah, real good job. That game didn't. It might not even last a full year. You idiots. And I'm talking to the publishers who greenlighted the project, not the developers who were forced to work on it, probably at gunpoint. Yeah, if you're gonna make a game, make a game. You know, I mean, look at games like Life is Strange. A good, I'm not gonna count the Before the Storm, but Life is Strange and Life is Strange True Colors had 5 chapters. Each chapter is about an hour, maybe 2 hours. And you got to know the people. You got to care about the people that you interacted with. You got to see struggles. It told a good story. Stories I still remember to this day from Life is Strange and Life is Strange True Colors. Before the Storm was basically a prequel to the first Life is Strange, so there was that. Red Dead Redemption had great story in 1 and 2. I can go on and on and on. And let's look at the most successful games of all time. Look at Pokemon on the Game Boy. Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, and I think there was another one back on the original Game Boy. Why was Pokemon selling like 48 million copies when you consider all the colors combined? Because it was a fun game. Looking for Pokemon and battling other Pokemon. Why is there's other, I mean, that's just one example. But these publishers, they're just like, I don't know why people won't buy our games nowadays. Maybe you should be forced to play them before you release them.
Oh yeah.
I think I don't have anything else to say. You got anything to say?
You read my mind to some extent. About half the things at least. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to just asking for tips from gamers. They even do this in my Z League app that I take part of for the online tournaments, where you can tip a developer. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I mean, that's developers been paying a lot of money to make games and also programs like that. For example, developers like Cliff Blinsky from the Gears of War creator, or the Gears of War, one of the makers of Gears of War, he got to be working at least hundreds of $1,000s every year for how many years up until Gears of War 3's project ended. That's why should I tip him $5, $10, $15 or whatever the amount is to open a tip? I don't want that shit to give to him. He's making more money than me. I'm the one paying the $60 for that Gears of War 1, 2, and 3, or the Ultimate Edition that's a remake of the matter. I'm not gonna spend $5 of my money to these guys. I'll spend it for a musician at my local subway station, or someone on the internet that's trying to make it big, like the next Tom Vec or perhaps ABC, those type of bands and stuff like that. Those people, I'll give them a couple of dollars at a time, whatever. But not the developer, they make a good amount of money. Every project they make they get about several thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, depending on which level or how much responsibility you have as a maker, a developer, and all. So if you're a top edge developer, you probably get like $100,000 in one project if you're lucky. But if you're like a writer or something like that, you might get like 50,000, some shit like that. Whatever. I don't know the exact numbers or the exact costs or the income, but that's each project they go on. It's a lump sum at a time if you choose to have a lump sum. So I agree with Triple J here.
I wrote about this on my blog about 3 days ago, and I want to read one paragraph I wrote that will really. Because I had trouble remembering some of the games that have been the best selling of all time. RoboCop Rogue City had 435,000 people playing the game after being out for 2 weeks. Did RoboCop Rogue City bombard the player with microtransactions? No. They focused on creating a fun game that people would want to play. Newsflash to executives. The same can be said about Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, Wii Sports, Mario Kart 8, Pokemon, and many more games. None of those games I mentioned were virtual in-game stores just trying to get you to buy more crap. They didn't ask for a tip. Uh, they were just fun games that people wanted to play and enjoyed playing. I can't believe that executives, this is what happens when you put the wrong people in power. Uh, I just can't believe executives still can't figure this out.
Either they're too inexperienced or they just don't give a damn about the end product or what they want to sell, and that's bad on their part as a morale of a business person. Yeah, think about the bigger picture most of the time, not about the quick fix or the quick making of a buck. You know.
Yeah, and also, technology has also gotten worse where, uh, you know, uh, because a lot of times people will, or publishers will release games and say, oh, we'll just patch it later. Yeah, well, you know what? If you're going to have the attitude of you're just going to patch your game later, I'll just buy it later. When the sale doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, we thought about that patch later after releasing the game, even if you get 10 million copies like Cyberpunk or whatever the amount was with Cyberpunk 2077. I knew to myself they're going to fix the game eventually after a year or so, but beforehand, during the release of it all, it was half-ass. I look at these gamers playing the game on Twitch and YouTube and all, and I'm like, man, so they fucked up on the graphics, the glitches, the mishaps. It's like, lazy, very lazy. I was not expecting that Cyber 2077. Maybe with an indie developer like the Heart Forth Release Group, after 10 years later, now that they haven't released their game yet, do the Kickstarter and all. Well, that's a different story right there. Now that's a waste of dollars to give to that group at the time. They should give them my money for that matter for not producing that game after 10 years. And they're still making it to this day via their Twitch streams. I'm like, laziness too. Like there's no work ethic as it used to be. Most of these gamers, not gamers, the game developers and all. But
Yeah.
yes, back 25 years ago, the graphics were a little different. It wasn't as high quality. I'm still watching a video that this one particular YouTuber made several months ago that on why PS1 and N64 graphics were the best back in the day, because there was limitations, yes, but there was passion. There was built up of of ethos, a built up of morale, positive morale in what they wanted from their games. Yes, money was to be made in the long run, yes, but that was the idea too. They were making millions of dollars over time in the PlayStation 1 N64 era. No, that's one of the best game times at the time as a gamer at age 10, 12, 13 years old at the time for me.
Yeah,
So
think about Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear was a dead franchise after Nintendo. You had Metal Gear and you had Snake's Revenge. The series was dead, and then they just tried something with Metal Gear Solid, and it blew everyone's socks off. And Metal Gear Solid became its own franchise. I mean, that was a shot in the dark. I'm glad they took it, but they handled that with passion and care.
oh yeah.
It was the closest thing we had to a video game movie at the time. Um, but it but unlike Metal Gear Solid 2, it didn't totally eliminate the gameplay or
Yeah.
eliminate too much of the gameplay. Um, but yeah, I mean, so it's kind of like, these games, they don't cost they okay, if you're gonna make a multi-million dollar budget, I understand Grand Theft Auto 5 is the perfect example of that. Yeah, but you're gonna make that money back if you make a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Look at RoboCop Rogue City. If I'm not mistaken, that's I think the first ever good RoboCop game. So, I mean, and like I said, almost 500,000 people were playing it in the first 2 weeks. So,
Indeed.
it's not like they can't make money, but what they want to do is they want to nickel and dime everyone to death, and then they wonder why their game doesn't work.
or doesn't
and
last as long,
or
and just
doesn't
like
last, and they can't figure out that just making a good game that people would be interested in would have worked better, even if it wasn't as visually appealing as Baldur's Gate 3. You know,
hmm.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There are game stories that still stick with me. Not just Life is Strange. There's Heavy Rain. There's Beyond Two Souls. Um, Obviously, Red Dead Redemption, the first one. Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. Um,
Devil May Cry.
no, I never played Devil May Cry. Um, but the point I'm trying to make is, these games had a great story. I mean, look at Max Payne. It has a good story. You care about Max Payne because you see what he went through in the first level of the first game, and now he's undercover. And then you see, and the controls were not butchered. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
so and like I said, I'm a big fan of the comic book storytelling panels in between levels. I wonder why they never made a Max Payne comic book. Just take the panels from the comic book, just from this cutscenes, and like make a whole comic out of it. Maybe they just didn't have enough material.
Yeah, back then it was a budget reason because the makers of Max Payne, they weren't all well funded like the EA and shit like that. These were just regular people. Rice, this is referred to back to Rice Effect. Rice Evek. He's the one who talked about this. We'll say that the makers of Max Payne were just typical family members and friends working together on that game, especially Max Payne 1. So,
Okay. Yes. So
yeah.
I mean, yeah. That's
We should tip those guys, the first Max Payne wakers, because they were just family members and friends looking out for each other, help each other out for try to put this game on in the market. We could tip those type of guys, but
yeah.
not like EA.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, if you try to tip Rocksteady or WB, you're going to tip the executive who thought Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, fell below expectations, and he doesn't know why. Um,
Hmm.
I don't want to tip that guy. That's just supporting bad. That's just supporting bad behavior.
Yep.
Anyway,
Man,
anything else to add, or ready to move on?
I just want to say this though, that if the executives of these companies, WB, EA, Activision, Blizzard, hell,
Ubisoft.
even Disney, they said Disney has their hand in games too. Like, if you guys listen to us, or will listen to us one day, you guys should just leave altogether, and or at least reevaluate your priorities with the company. Like, that's the first step. If you can't do that yourself, you should just resign and to have someone with more knowledge to look into the company or to look after the company.
Yeah,
That's all I want to say with these guys.
there's something else I want to know. Take the executive from WB who greenlit Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. Did the creators have to play the game all the way through, from beginning
Not
to
really.
end? Did the executives have to play it all the way through? I wonder, maybe if they had to sit through what they were forcing everyone else to sit through, maybe
Yeah.
they would understand, yeah, we shouldn't have greenlit this project,
Oh yeah.
or greenlit it in the way we did, because everyone was interested until they heard it was live service. Then they were like, I'm out.
Yeah, based on what Angry Joe said the other day or two in their show, in reference obviously, and they were saying that there's gonna be 10, if not 8 more of these boss battles for every season up until next year. So basically, because there's like a final boss in the first season, final boss in the second season, and so on and so forth. That's like it's a repetitious thing over and over too.
Yeah,
Different forms, different
but
bosses of the same
it's a
boss.
rehashed boss, because it's Brainiac every time. He just fights like a different superhero every time.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
at first it's the Flash, and then it was the Green Lantern, or maybe that it was the Green Lantern first, and then he fights like Flash, and it's like, okay, I'd go through this multiple times. Why? But like I said, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has been such a dumpster fire that they said they might end up shutting the game servers off in early 2025.
Uh-huh.
So January of 2025, which would make it 11 months since Suicide Squad came out.
Not even a year. That's
Ex-
pathetic.
Yep. some good live service that was.
Yeah, if they turn it to an actual like spin-off or standalone game like that of like this is a standalone, like just not canon, not part of the lore per se. Okay, I can understand that feeling, and it might work well with that matter to sell a regular game that is, but not some live service. Like it's just it tarnished the WB's name, DC Comics and all. It just that's all they've been doing for the last several years now. Triple J is that they've been like ruining IPs and brands and characters that we grew up on over the last several decades, if not at least a few years, and it's turned into a shit show.
Yeah,
It,
and now Mike Ybarra thinks they should be tipped if they did a good job.
if we think we did a good job, especially if they force us to, like, we already have enough people as is not tipping to some people out there on the delivery drivers because for the last several years with the DoorDash and Uber Eats and all, the deliverers or the companies were taking advantage of them. So now they changed the DoorDash bit. I'm not sure what's like with Uber Eats. Really, I don't use Uber Eats as much. But DoorDash, they started to like hold up for a tip in and add like a convenient not state tax, like a New York City tax here in New York City. They're like one of those service fees, extra service fees of $2 per order. So you get you get the tax, the delivery fee, and the tip, as well as the $2 extra New York City related fiasco. Other New Yorkers who use DoorDash, they'll tell you too. They'll tell you about the matter as well. They're like, "What? Another $2?" Because we're not tipping the drivers anymore. Now it goes through the company or through wherever the order is, depending on what you ordered from. So even if it's different from gaming, imagine this through gaming as well.
Yeah.
It's a horrible service after a while.
If any game had a tip jar that was either optional or mandatory, that's definitely one game I'm not touching.
Indeed. And if they're to boycott these companies after a while, sooner or later, if it's keep continuing to increase in wanting it, then I have no choice but to go back to my old games.
Yep. Hey, people thought Disney was too big to fall, and Disney has been hemorrhaging money.
Yeah, that statement, too big to fail. Whoever created that thing back in the 2008 crisis, he should be slapped for that matter. I'm not trying to sound like I'm being violent. It's just that, motherfucker, what's wrong with you? You want too big to fail? That's me saying I'm too big to die. I'm too sick to die or something like that. But we will have our problems going up and down in companies and health and all. But you can't prevent the inevitable on some of the companies' bad practices, and this is one of them. When it comes to gaming and all. Yep. So then that's going to be a collapse in gaming sooner or later, or a gaming crash, if ever, due to this stuff. That's one sign of it all.
Right.